Welcome to Storyteller, a profile series highlighting the dreams, journeys, and achievements of our students, alumni, and supporters, presented by Doyon Foundation.
Dringwezre Shalakshijana Napadi Deacon Dragon Kloshoi Kleta Chukdrin Teisha Simmons Puts Akarehiata Sha Shechi Dihad Hetiata Jiti Dikinchik Kwa Dihakwan Takta Masicho Nawaicha. Hello, welcome everyone. We're here today with Teisha Simmons, and she's a Denaakk'e language learner. And today we'll hear from her about her language journey, her learning process, the things that have helped her along the way, and why it's important to learn language. So welcome, Teisha. It's very good to see you.
Yeah, Anabasi, for having me, Allan. I'm excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite subjects.
Great. Would you like to share maybe an introduction in Denaakk'e with us?
I will do my best as I'm learning.
Okay.
So, Teisha Simmons Sauza, Notali Den, Yelfunil Gadata, Hatan Aslan, Fairbanks Lesda, Setsi S. Sydney Huntington, Setsu, Angela Huntington, Jenny Huntington, Vela, Ina Marie Simmons, Ita James Waldo, Vela. So what I said is, my name is Teisha Simmons. My family comes from the communities of Galena and Huslia and Kaikuk. And my mother is Marie Simmons. My father is the late James Waldo. And my grandparents are Sydney and Angela Huntington and the late Jenny Huntington of Galena and Kaikuk.
Awesome.
I live in Fairbanks.
Beautiful. I love that. So you've been learning Denaakk'e, and would you say for a certain time period or just most of your life, or when did you start?
I would say that, just growing up around elders, always hearing it, I have this memory of living next door to the late Madeline Solomon. She was an elder in Galena, and my mom and her would always send me back and forth borrowing things, butter or sugar or whatever. And I remember she would always say to me when I go to her house, she'd say, Anabasi. And I went home and I said, Mom, I really want to say you're welcome to Grandma Madeline in Athabascan. How do I say it? And I always remember wanting to learn as a kid too, and hearing elders speak. But I would say, like, in the Western sense of learning, of like taking it upon myself to say, I really want to learn my language. That was really inspired by the late Lillian Garnett. She was teaching at Howard Luke Academy when I was in high school. And she was teaching Gwich'in. And in all honesty, at that point in my life, I didn't even know the difference among the different languages. And but she had us write an entire speech in Gwich'in. And I think my speech was like a page and a half long. And we had to get up in front of the entire school and say it. And she just inspired us in such a way that I had no fear about even doing it. She just believed in us that we could do it. And this was the way it was done. And it was really amazing. I just remember afterwards feeling like, wow, that felt really good. And I would say that's when I was really like, okay, I really would love to learn my language. And then my sister Tiffany, when she was at UAF, she took a language course. And I remember she had her workbook and she would share with me. And so there was just these things that kind of happened over time that I would say kind of unofficially got me into wanting to learn the language. But I would say that probably the thing that really, as an adult, so those were high school moments, as an adult and me really becoming empowered, was Sharon Hildebrand called me up one day and said, hey, we should try to make a singing group in Fairbanks. And I was like, okay, I'm always game for whatever Sharon's got going on. And so we just called up some people and tried to see if this was before. I think this was before like social media and things. Like, we just had emails at this point, and we just called up people and emailed, and we got some elders that said they'd work with us, and we would get together once a week and start learning. And we had these CDs, and we would listen to the CDs and try to write it down, the best we could phonetically. And then the elders would come to town that we were working with, and they would sit down and be like, okay, here's how you spell it, or here's how you say that word. And we just kind of did the best we could. And pretty soon we somehow turned into an official group and started getting invites to sing at different places. I think One year we actually sang at the Alaska Federation of Natives, but it was really neat. But another moment I can remember that really highlights wanting to learn the language and what the words meant, because we were singing songs at that point, was we were singing in front of a group of elders that came to town, and they were like, wow, you guys sang 2 whole songs. They were so impressed. And then they said, do you even know what you're saying? And we were like, nope, we had no idea what we were saying in those songs. We just learned them phonetically. Like, we learned the tune and we learned how to say the words, but we didn't even know what we were saying in the songs, like what each word meant. And they were like, we've never seen people sing before, but not know what they were saying. And so that was another point, I'd say, where I kind of was like, okay, I need to learn more and what I'm saying. And then just, opportunities would come up here and there. Susan Pascavan held a language camp out at Birch Lake one time. So I went out there with my daughter, and then just, every opportunity that came, I just made myself available to go to it. And yeah, it's just been an incredible journey and very, very good for my heart and my spirit. So that's kind of my journey of how I got to where I am today with wanting to learn.
Beautiful. We have that in common then, because Lillian was one of my first teachers when I was just a child.
She's such a good teacher.
Yeah. I think I must have been in preschool and then all through my elementary and into junior high school. She was one of my big teachers, she taught me the reading and writing system. And just, I really love all the things she shared with me, and miss her. It was a big loss when she passed this last fall. Yeah. And also Sharon Hildebrand. I just always loved running across her. She'll say things in Gwich'in to me because she took Gwich'in at the university. And she has a lot of good things to share as well. And those elders you mentioned, that was how I also first started learning, just hearing them in the village. And then slowly I started responding to them in the language, and they were just couldn't be happier to hear a young person talking to them. Yeah. So how would you describe your kind of approach to language learning, that process?
So, yeah, that's such a good question, because I've had to change the way I think about learning, because I feel like sometimes in life, for myself anyhow, there's always this like, okay, when I have time, I will do this, or someday I would like to learn my language, or this is one of my goals, but it seems kind of far away. And like, almost like everything has to be aligned perfectly, time-wise, resource-wise, in order to just start working towards this goal, which is a big goal, right? Like, learning a language that's a big goal. I mean, it's no easy thing, and it takes time and dedication. And so I found myself just thinking about it in a way that was always putting it at a different time. So when this happens, then I'll be ready, or when this happens, then I'll be ready, or when I have all the resources, I'll be ready, or when there's a class, I'll be ready, or whatever it was. And I've had a really big shift in the way I think about learning now. And I've learned to approach all my goals in life like this now, is that I don't want to wait until the time is right, or when this happens, then I'll be ready. So what I've committed myself to doing now is, what I do is at least every single day is, instead of looking at the Doyon Languages online program and saying, okay, well, when I have time to sit down and do a full lesson, then I will learn. Instead, what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to get my 15 minutes in today. And it doesn't matter if I even finish a lesson, or I only get halfway through, or maybe I pull out my Athabascan dictionary and I look through it for 15 minutes, but I set a timer and I commit 15 minutes to doing it, because otherwise I'm always grasping or waiting for that time to be perfect for me to sit down and learn. And what I found is that if I dedicate time every day to learning, it works out much better. And every day I'm making progress toward my goal of wanting to learn and actually learning, instead of saying, well, maybe this Saturday I'll have a 3-hour chunk of time where I can sit down and do a unit of the online languages lessons. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty interesting, because I know I get in 15 minutes every single day, but almost always it turns into a longer period of time, because I get in there and it's just the act of opening up the languages online format or a program and just starting to work on it. And it'll be an hour later and I'll be just like lost in it and enjoying it. And, but it's really gotten me past this idea of like, okay, I'm going to work on it when this happens or when everything's perfect. If I were to say, I'm going to do an hour every day, then I might put it off because it's a full hour. But if I say 15 minutes, I know I set the timer. I've got 15 minutes. And if I only have 15 minutes that day, that's fine. If it turns into an hour because I have it, that's great too.
Wow, that's really good. Very good advice for anyone with, wanting to make progress on, whatever goal they're working on, if it's language or,
yes.
And
especially with that online languages program at Durham Foundation. I mean, it's just right there. It doesn't matter if I have 15 minutes at the drive-through for waiting for coffee while I'm waiting in the coffee line, or if I have 15 minutes when I'm on a work break or whatever it is. Like, it's just so easy to do with it right there. I can just log in. And sometimes I don't even get through a full lesson, which is fine because I'll do it again tomorrow and then I can make progress, and really kind of soak it up even more so. So yeah, it's been a game changer for sure to kind of rethink my goals in life altogether of, okay, 15 minutes. I don't have to do the whole thing right now.
That's awesome. So that's something that you say would help you learn. Are there other things that you found very helpful in your learning process?
Yeah, I think another thing too is what my idea of learning is, like just knowing that spending time with the language is also learning. Sometimes I can be a bit of a perfectionist when I approach things. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I want to know what every word in that sentence means. And instead, just familiarizing myself with it and going through the lessons and knowing like, okay, it's building upon itself. That's important. I think sometimes probably the biggest things for me have just been in my approach and my own, sometimes we get in our own way. We're our biggest obstacle. And so the other thing I would say is not being a perfectionist in how I say things. And that really came from some elders we were working with, because they could see we were kind of getting caught up in saying the word exactly right, or being afraid to say a word because maybe we couldn't say it right at that time. And what Eliza Jones said to me was, it doesn't matter if you say it perfect. What matters is that you start saying it, because the more you say it, the better you're going to get. Just like we would rather bring our language back than have you guys try to bring it back perfectly and never bring it back. And so I think that's been another really big eye opener for me, is like, okay, just keep going. Even if you get stuck on one part, even if you can't pronounce that word right, just keep saying it and don't feel bad if you can't say it perfectly, because it's going to get there eventually, And so that was really great advice she gave me as well, was, just keep going. Don't try to strive for perfection. Instead, make progress and keep learning. Otherwise, we kind of like hit a wall of, okay, well, I guess I'm just not good enough for this word, or I'm not good enough to keep learning, or I don't really know what I'm doing, or I'm never going to get it. All these things we tell ourselves in our heads about how things have to be, when really we just have to start doing, and making time for it, and practicing, because practice will eventually make perfect.
That's very true. Just when we think of children and they're learning, they make a lot of mistakes, but we don't. We just try to support them. And if they say, "Oh, I go to the store," do you mean I went to the store? And they'll continue saying, "I go to the store."
Yes.
But it's fine. That's how children learn. So we should give ourselves that same leeway and forgiveness if we make some mistake.
Yes.
It's fine. Yeah. So forgiving yourself if you don't say it perfectly or exactly right. That's really important, because eventually, over time you do, continue learning. You don't learn it right the first time. That's not quite the learning, exactly the learning process. It takes time to learn things. Appreciate that.
Definitely does take time. I would say, from that time that Lillian had us write that speech and learn. I mean, I think I was like a junior in high school. So that was like 25 years ago. And I just imagine if I wouldn't have gotten caught up in my head of this perfectionism and this idea that I have to have hours set aside in order to work on it, how much further I'd be along if I just started today with, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to open up my program and start it, and, giving it that time every day, an approach of being graceful with myself, even when I make mistakes. I think that I'd be a lot further along if I would have thought of those changes in my approach early on.
Well, that's beautiful. It's something you can share with beginning learners who are just starting out,
Yes.
that they can take the time be kind with themselves, just, and what would you say, what it means to you to keep learning? Like you mentioned starting some time ago, but you're continuing today, and there must be a reason that keeps you going.
Yeah. It really comes down, Allan, to I'd say two things. Like one is, this is a language that our ancestors spoke for thousands of years. And I think we all carry some responsibility to keep it alive and thriving, number one. Number two, though, I have to tell you that it literally comes down to my own wellness. And one thing I noticed, and one thing Zach has told me, is my entire sense of well-being and my mood and everything is so much better. And so, like, I am just a happier person when I'm practicing my language. I mean, after I do a lesson on Doyle languages online, I am literally just on cloud nine. Like, it feels so good to me. And what I would equate it to is like, if we are in our community and we go to a potlatch and we're at the hall and the singing and drumming are just like so powerful. One of the memories I have is of being in Minto or the Nalato Hall, and the singing is so strong and the dancing is so strong that you can kind of see the floor moving, like, it's moving underneath people's feet, like it's kind of wavering up and down. And that feeling I get when I'm in the hall and the music is like that, it is such an uplifting, beautiful, spiritual feeling. And I get that same feeling when I practice our language. Like it literally is self-care for me to practice our language. And so I would just encourage people to, it's such a great way. We all know that our culture is tied to our well-being, that when we have a stronger sense of who we are culturally and we're active in practicing that, it leads to better well-being and a good sense of identity and just wellness overall. And it doesn't matter what culture that is, whatever culture someone is, like the more we practice and understand our cultural identity, and language is part of that, like the happier we are, the healthier we are. And so I would just encourage people, to test that for yourselves and get on the Doyle Languages online page or whatever your learning resources are. Maybe it's pulling out the dictionary, maybe it's visiting with an elder, maybe it's listening to CDs, or, I have some old workbooks from when the courses were offered at UAF. Whatever it is, just spend 15-20 minutes in that and then kind of see how you feel emotionally, because it is so uplifting to me and really is at the core of my wellness. What I found as an adult is that I am just a happier person when I'm learning our languages and our songs. And so I know that that's something I have to do every day in order to just practice my own self-care and to build resilience, and it just makes me a better person. I just feel better as a person. And so part of it is a responsibility to our ancestors and our elders, but a very large part of it is also that I am just, the happiness it brings me is amazing. It's still actually a little baffling to me that learning my language can make me such a happy person.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, I've had that experience myself. When we've had language gatherings, there's always so much laughter and enjoyment. Just good times together when we're gathered and sharing the language. And it's rarely ever otherwise. It's just a beautiful thing, and it is connected. There's been actual research showing that these type of efforts, make a difference in your overall well-being, wellness, health, and I think that's a beautiful connection to make. Support your language, culture, and also support yourself, be healthy and well in your own, mental state or your emotional and physical state as well. It gives back when you give to the language, for sure.
Yeah, I would actually challenge anybody watching this that if you have not tried language learning before, give it 15 minutes per day for a week, just a week. Give us a week of your time and just see how you feel afterwards. Kind of just measure for yourself, do your own little experiment, because it really is amazing. Zach will tell me sometimes, like, make sure you practice, make sure you're listening to elder stories. Because the other thing I do is I get on the UAF archives during the pandemic. I've been getting on the UAF archives or listening to Project Jukebox or the TCC legacy stories, and practicing language. And he always says like, I know you're happiest when you're practicing your language or listening to elders, and so he always has this inside joke with me, like, I'm his happiest partner when I'm making sure I'm taking care of that part of my heart and my spirit.
Oh, great. Before we started the call, we were going over something you would share with others to be able to use in their daily life. And speaking of learning language, we can learn something right now. We
Yes.
have something we can text to one another, he said.
Yep. So one thing that I always encourage learners to do is just to focus on one word or one phrase, because otherwise, if you try to learn something new every single day, it can be overwhelming and you don't feel like you're retaining something. And so something I tell my close family members and friends is write down this phrase here, Mendan Huzun. And what this means is good morning. And then every single morning, so what I would say, anybody watching this right now, write that down. Alan's got it on the screen. Write it down, put it in your phone, put it in your notes, wherever, put it on the wall by your coffee pot, anywhere you're going to see it every day. And then just text this to somebody every single morning. So what I do is I get on my, a couple friends and we have a group chat going on. And every morning I get on and I just say, Mendan Huzun, ladies, and they'll write back. Sometimes they'll write it back to me. Sometimes they just say good morning. But what it does is it gives me the opportunity to practice saying good morning every single day. And then now it's just a natural part of my language. Like, and when I'm in staff meetings now and people say good morning, I always say Mendan Huzun when I'm on Zoom meetings. It just comes naturally. My phone starts pulling it up in predictions now. If I type in an M, it pulls up Mendan, which I think is cool. My iPhone is learning right along with me. So so what I would say is I hope everyone will write that down and text somebody tomorrow morning saying good morning to them, and just give yourself a challenge to do that every day, because before you know it, it's going to come naturally and you're just going to start saying it.
Yeah, it's a part of normalizing language and making it every day, using it as often as you can.
Yep. I also start my emails in the morning. I start my emails with that. If I'm emailing somebody for work in the morning, I always write like Mendan Huzun. I'm just writing to let you know that or whatever it is, whether it's work or personal. I always write good morning in my emails in our language now.
Beautiful. I sure appreciate all your time today. And we've tried to connect a couple times and you filled out the online questionnaire, and that, I don't know where that went into the ether, but I'm glad you didn't give up.
Well, I'm glad you didn't give up on me too. So thank you. Thank you for being patient and doing this. This was so fun. I feel good even just talking about it.
Anything else you'd like to share today?
No, what I would just say is give it, if all you have is 5 minutes per day, give it 5 minutes per day. And the other thing that I would say is when you see opportunities come up, just join, just join them and meet new people who are practicing language too. Some of my closest friends now are people who are doing language learning as well. And it's just been really awesome to build those bonds as well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, and look forward to talking again soon, and maybe joining do you have a regular evening class still, or?
We're not doing evening classes right now, but we are getting ready to start a possible lunch hour class on Wednesdays, I believe. I'm right in the middle of talking with Susan. I'm trying to honor her break. She's still on her break, so I'm trying not to bother her during her break because she works so hard, and I know she gets a million emails about language a day. So, but I did a poll, and it looks like Wednesdays at the lunch hour are what would work best for people. And so as soon as Susan is back and busy with all things again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of be outreaching and networking with people to get people there, and then Susan will lead lessons. So great opportunity. And what I would just say is don't get into your own mind and be your own biggest challenge. If you miss the first two, that's okay. Come to the third one. If you miss the first 5, that's okay. Come to the 6th one. Like, whatever you're telling yourself as to why you can't join or participate or get online to do, like, just overcome that thought and start wherever you are.
Great. We'll definitely keep us updated, and we'll try to help promote it here at Doyen Foundation.
Okay.
And, let people know and get the word out. So Masicho, thank you very much again, and look forward to talking again soon.
Basi, Allan.
For more Storyteller profiles, visit doyonfoundation.com/storyteller.